Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us on Politics Tonight. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has expressed confidence that the newly signed 2026 Electoral Act will strengthen the credibility of Nigeria's electoral process and deepen democratic practice, assuring that the country's democracy will continue to flourish. On the program with me tonight is Chairman Boot Party, Sonny Adenuga. He's been giving us his fair assessment of this latest developments. Thank you very much for staying with me on the program, Mr. Adenuga. PVC remains the sole mandatory mode of identification at the polling units, but some stakeholders are arguing that if you're relying solely on PVCs, it may disenfranchise voters who are facing challenges in obtaining or replacing their cards, particularly in rural areas. Yeah, is this a major concern?
Well, I'm going to say that if you look at if you've gone to polling unit to vote in the past, you're going to see that INEC comes with this BVAS device, and they look at your...
Most of them are concerned about the rural areas.
Yes, but they still use the BVAS. They take the BVAS to all these locations because what they demonstrated in Abuja, there are some rural area of FCT, and they were able to show that the BVAS, they go there with it. But I think the good thing about the nation, for instance, I mean, we've seen how great our NIN have become in Nigeria. So almost a lot of Nigerians know what NIN is about. So we might probably be looking at in the future, is it possible for INEC to have handshake with National Identity Commission so that such ghost voters, those who are going to argue that, oh, I stay in the city, I didn't know that my voter's card, I didn't get it. I do hear that a lot of time. I know some people that will have voted in 2023 general election. They couldn't vote, they live in the city, they are educated, but they couldn't find their PVC. And also, we heard a comment of INEC also who claimed that, oh, millions of people unclaimed the PVC. So the question is this: there have been some progress in this area, and I think in the future we should be looking at having that handshake so that, like you said, maybe including international passport so that people can have a better means of life. But of course, we need to put something in mind here. I can understand where INEC may be coming from. They might have been the one to challenge against it because that will require them to change their infrastructure. So the question is that, is the BVAS ready to be able to allow for NIN to be used as a means of identification? You know, because when you go to vote, they pick a voter's card, probably check the voter's identification number, VIN. So that is their own database. Right. It's quite easy for them to connect to it. So at this point,
I'm happy I'm speaking with the politicians because you and your colleagues now have streamlining of party primaries, which is now either through consensus or direct primary. During the last general election, you were the chairman of the party. You were also the presidential candidate of your party. Does it favor someone like you?
Does it what?
Does it favor people like you?
To have direct primary?
Yes.
Yeah, we're the only political party in Nigeria. That is the only what we accept in our party. We do not do any other form unless there is only one candidate. So it's also one of the things we have championed before now. So, and we're happy again that it's making its way into the Electoral Act. From the outset, when the idea about Boot Party was conceived.
There's also consensus.
Yeah, that is, if a candidate just apply, then for us, that's what we call consensus. But it's not a case of trying to force anybody to step down. No. If two people are going to contest, then it has to be by direct primary. And I can tell you, as the national chairman, I only got one vote. And sometimes people have challenged that, how do you run a party like this? For instance, by state of origin, I'm from Ogun State. And when we're deciding who become governorship candidate in Anambra State, I do not vote in those elections because I wasn't registered from Anambra State. My state of origin is where I'm going to vote from. And the vote for the primary of electing our candidate in Anambra State can only be from those from that constituency. Do you understand what I mean? So we are the first also to do that. So for us, it's not a concern.
But are we not replacing a flawed delegate system with a more expensive and potentially chaotic system?
Yeah, we can throw technologies to it, and we have done that easily. We have an app we use in voting, and then we have what we call the election monitoring system of our own as a political party, and we allow public to have access to this. INEC used it also in the past to monitor our 2023 general election primaries and other primaries that we've had. So we encourage political parties to be able to do that. But of course, we recognize that it could be very expensive for a lot of political parties, because when you have to talk about the investment in IT infrastructure, it could be a bit expensive. But again, it is doable. It's a path to go. It will encourage democracy. It will encourage internal democracy in political party, and it will increase people's confidence.
Is
also
it easy to implement?
When you say easy, I don't want to use my heart to decide that if it's easy, but it is not impossible.
Because I'm looking at the kind of politicians, I mean, I'm looking at the kind of politicians we have in this country. Politicians who do not even respect the rule of law. So how easy would it be for them to respect such process?
I will tell you that it's not just politicians. One thing I found, even in professional calling, is that it's easy for a lot of people to even make laws and never think the law will apply to them. Anytime
This shouldn't even be the business of INEC. We shouldn't even have this in Electoral Act, deciding this kind of process for us as a party.
I think it should be, because you see, there is no, I mean, what the representative democracy we practice today is been done for 2,500 years by Romans. They were the first who brought representative democracy, even though the Greek actually started democracy before them. The concept of Senate, the many concepts that we have in democracy. But the point I'm making here is this: in every democracy have a way of writing their own rule. There is nothing that is not possible. If we have written our rule like that, then that's what we're going to do. I will give you an example. There are countries in this world that after election is completed, they will house the votes and agree on dates. They will come back to come and count them. And I mean, just telling Nigerians that, you know, what is going to feel alien to us. So it's the way we have fashioned our democracy. So it's nothing like it's impossible. And that's why I'm not trying to attack the court here or judiciary, but we have different ways of looking at things. But it's sad that the opportunity presented by 2026 Electoral Act, I'm not sure address that concern. That look, because the law can make interpretation, the court can make legal interpretation in a particular way. That is why we have the National Assembly to have corrected it. They should have made it clear in our law, point blank. If a candidate is elected through primary, it should be binding. And if it's not clear like that in our law, then a court can have a different interpretation, and that is a big opportunity mixed. So I don't know how other politicians will see it, but for us,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so
let's talk about election funding. 873.78 billion naira to conduct 2027 general elections. ANECO is also demanding 171 billion naira to fund its operations in this 2026 fiscal year. Significant figures there, but what exactly should Nigerians demand or expect in return for this kind of funding? Well,
sometimes it's difficult to put value to things like this, because if you don't sit on the other side...
How difficult is it, especially when we spend a lot of money and people don't even come out to vote on election day?
Well, you're not going to blame INEC for that, isn't it? Because I have to be fair to them as well. They're doing their best. I mean,
is that best enough?
Well, is it only INEC's fault? Don't politicians also take part of the fault?
Yeah,
that doesn't.
That
I have to be honest. I've said from day one, when I put my heart in the ring as a politician, I will be as honest as much as possible, and that has not changed. That fault does not only lies with INEC. Politicians also we need to put our house in order to encourage more people to join in participating in election. And I have to tell people probably that people say, oh, votes doesn't count. But the question is, if vote doesn't count, why do people come to buy it from you? It can't. So people, please disabuse your mind from the idea that votes doesn't count. It can't. And of course, I feel people who push this narrative,
politicians also.
Yes, they're politicians, not INEC. there are politicians who push this narrative. They just want to discourage you so that less people comes to polling unit. And we did a study sometimes in 2022 about how we came up with the concept of ghost voters. And they are the ones that are a problem. We actually advocated for compulsory, making voting to be compulsory by law. One thing that is wrong in our electoral process, and which is not found anywhere in the world, is this. There are pre-election and election processes that happen. The final point of pre-election process is registering to vote, then voting. In Nigeria, none of these processes is compulsory. It's wrong. You cannot say people should come and register for election and they don't turn up to vote. So, and I keep saying to people, if our
What are you proposing?
Yes, voting should be made compulsory by law. And the reason is simple. If our election were to be research, you're conducting your research, and we only, you're going to say, instead, they will say statistically insignificant. And what that means is that it's not going to stand. They will say reject null hypothesis. So the point here is that our election should not stand anywhere in the world, because the percentage of people that participate in this election, when the Greek started democracy, it is everybody, eligible voter, that have to vote to elect people in their town center at that time. So why is it different? And we tend to say Western countries is not compulsory. I beg your pardon. The day in Britain, in America, and in advanced countries like Germany, that turnout turns to be as low as 30% in election, you are going to see the narrative is going to change. And it's high time our leaders, those who have voted into the National Assembly, to start looking at it. But you know why they won't look at it? It's not like it's not discussed. It's not a concern for them, because it's easier to bribe, to buy votes
we'll come back to that in a moment, because
5,000 people and become elected than.
So this electoral funding, because like I said, we keep spending more every 4 years, even for off-cycle elections, and yet people don't come out to vote. Should INEC have some sort of financial autonomy outside annual legislative approval? And can we even sustain this rising cost of elections every 4 years? Well,
one of the best ways of reducing the cost of elections is probably to change the method that we're using. Presidential system of election is expensive, not only for the electoral umpire. It's very expensive for even the politicians to be able to imagine having to convince everybody in the country before you can become a president. But imagine if it were to be a parliamentary system of election democracy. What's going to happen is that you're just required to win from your own constituency. So when we talk about cost, it's difficult for me because I don't have the detail of what constitutes the bulk of money, the bulk of the budget that INEC has got. But clearly, IT is expensive. I always tell people this. It's not because Naira is 2,000 Naira to a pound or 1,500 to dollar.
To be fair on INEC, I had a conversation with the resident electoral commissioner for Osun State, and he justified this rising cost of election every 4 years. So maybe we should just...
Yeah, it's expensive because, like I said to you, we're moving into ICT, and someone in India, probably, or in Britain or America, supporting our IT infrastructure, is not going to say it's Nigeria. And if he's supposed to charge 10,000 pounds, he's not going to say, oh, because Nigeria is poor, I will charge 1,000 pounds. It's not going to happen. It's going to be paid. And we know that we do not have all the manpower, the technology in-house in the country to be able to deliver on this. So clearly, I expect that IT is going to be consuming a lot of those budget
All right,
funding.
let's go back to a matter you raised earlier. I mean, you've said to me tonight that when it comes to voter sensitization, voter awareness, voter education, INEC does not have the sole responsibility, or the sole responsibility does not lie on INEC. So the last general election we had was in 2023. For you, as a chairman of the Boot Party, how well has your party gone in taking up this responsibility?
Yeah, it's a very big challenge, and it's expensive.
To sensitize Nigerians.
To sensitize people, and not only that, the big wigs in the system have kind of poisoned the political landscape in such a way that when you talk to people in the public, They hear all the money being talked about, and they think, as politicians, someone has given you money. Do you know how many ignorant?
I do apologize. Are you speaking to them so they can vote for both party, or you're just sensitizing them on why they should come out and vote every 4 years?
I think the two go together, because I'm not going to go to the public domain and be talking to people when it is not for the interest of the both party. It has to be that. That's the main objective. That's what our rallies are for. But of course, also, we encourage people that, look, if you don't come out to vote, the danger is this: someone will most likely buy your vote. But that has been have been mitigated to some degree based on the BVAS method. Because before now, you will be so surprised how much of, people do talk about ballot snatching and all the rest. It is lesser now. It's just that people don't tend to pay attention to it. What is now, you recall 2023 general election, 2019, there was not so much of noise about vote buying, because at that time they can steal ballot boxes and stuff it. But
would you say this is because there's this militarization of our elections?
Well, it's not really militarization. There are a lot of places where how many soldiers or policemen are in Nigeria that they can fill every polling unit? No, but it's simply because before then it's easier for them to just steal and stuff ballot.
Technology
but now, because of the technology, now as part of transmission of election result, they also transmit the numbers of accredited voters. So what it means is this: if there are 500 people registered to vote in a polling unit, and only 300 or 200 came out to be accredited, so they're going to send those accreditation numbers along with the election result. And that it puts a massive checks into how many vote, like in the past where they say, people rig all these things. So what sometimes people don't know is that it's easy to think that, because you don't transmit by e-transmission and then you don't do it real time. Forgetting that there have been other controls that have been established that mitigate some of the concerns that people actually have. But it's not perfect yet. Right. That's not what I'm saying.
Let's stay on this before I go back to our conversation. Would you be recontesting in 2027?
No, it's not.
Is both party ready for 2027?
Yeah, both party is ready for 2027. We have a lot of our members who are interested in running in 2027. But personally, I'm not going to say that at this point in the public domain.
But are you recontesting?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to say that in the public.
2027 election is just.
Yeah. So, but I think I still have rights of secrecy, isn't it? Yeah, so, but what I'm just saying is that...
Are you sure that what you're not telling me is that instead of going for the presidential election, you'll be opting for the governorship seat in Ogun State?
Everything is on the table, but the point here is that as a political party, which I represent at this point in time, it's first and foremost my duty to present the party in such a way that we could attract more members, and that is really happening very fast. And a lot of our members have actually shown a lot of interest in contesting in this election.
So we have the Osun elections coming, we have the Ekiti State elections coming. What do you think is the biggest single challenge for INEC going into those off-cycles elections?
I personally do not see why they can't deliver before now. And these provisions of the law have been there. So maybe I can tell someone to take it up, to use Freedom of Information Act, and let INEC tell us how much conviction, how much prosecution, let's even leave conviction now, how much electoral offenders have they actually prosecuted. We've had cases.
Have the prosecutorial powers.
Yeah, and it's some of the things we asked for. In my recent article to Nigerians, I asked for electoral ombudsman. Some of these things, they need to be taken off the shoulders of INEC. But at the moment, they are the one responsible for that. But they can leave the conviction, that's not their problem. But they have the duty to, they can, of course, prosecution is also, the police that prosecute, but they can use their resources to make sure that electoral offenders, they get to the bottom of it. So it's not a case, sorry Jumoke, let me finish this point. It's not a case of, how weighty is the deterrent, or we've had cases, I mean, like all these off-cycle election we're talking about, what brought about them? Most of them were brought up, not, I can't recall a governor dying. It was cases of maybe courts throwing out a particular person that was elected. They said, oh, election was not appropriate or blah, 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 and they gave it to some, I mean, another person was declared winner by the court. In those instances, how much of those people has been prosecuted? So it's when there are no actual deterrents happening, then more people is going to be involved.
Quickly, because this is the conversation we've been having for a while. And if we're saying that it's high time we took this responsibility off INEC, don't you think that it's high time that a call for the establishment of the National Offences Commission should be considered?
It should be, because, and of course, we also have to think about it, that how are they even going to go about some of these things in the first instance? How is it going to be, this case is going to be reported? But let's first make sure we legislate about it. But the point is this, we know with due respect to our leaders in the National Assembly, the big parties, let me not say the National Assembly, let's say the APC of this world, the PDP of this world, and those of them who have found their way into ADC, they are the ones who are champion all these vices up to this point in time.
Great place to leave this conversation. And with the president signing this Electoral Bill 2026 into law, expectations are high. Nigerians are watching closely to see whether these reforms would actually translate into credible elections, stronger institutions, and reflect the will of the people. Thank you so much for joining me. It's good to see you in person. We've always been talking virtually. Thank you. Sonia Gidenuga is the chairman of Boots Party. Thank you so much for your time. Please have a great evening. Thank you. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But before we go, let's tell you that the views and reactions of our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Meanwhile, you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at 12:30 a.m. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG and at Olajumo Kedobu using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News NG. I'm Olajumo Kedobu. Good night, everyone. I'll see you again tomorrow.